In March, a national crisis swept Taiwan. Queues snaked around blocks, shelves stood bare, and panic erupted in towns and cities across the country. But this was explicitly not the Taiwan crisis you're probably always hearing about.
好几十年，这是今年最贵的价钱。
大家都是用抢的。
有大排长龙买蛋的机
会超长，
全台鸡蛋荒，全台闹蛋荒。
By March, egg production was trailing demand by upwards of 1.4 million eggs a day. In the streets, crowds gathered outside supermarkets. Online, bad eggs scrambled to spread disinformation and excite political tensions. Taipei had no choice but to slash import bans, and by April, 1 million eggs were arriving at Taiwanese ports every day. By May, that number had doubled. Nor is this the first time that fears around food supply have gripped Taiwan.
WTO 呢，昨天达成了贸易协议。
这和农民忧心忡忡，会让台湾农业生存不下去。
为了替农民发声，白米炸弹客
必须放置17个贴有反对进口稻米的爆裂物。
爆裂物里头居然有白米。
白米炸弹客。
我是彩田友善农作的执行长杨鲁门，自首之后总共判刑5年10个月，他关了大概2年7个月之后被特赦。那时候就讲了很多种抗争的方式，如何在确定不会伤人的状况底下，去让政府跟这个社会所重视。许多的教授、老师、立法委员跟社会团体当时支持白米炸弹客跟他所做的事情。
But why did the prospect of imported rice, like a few months of egg shortages, provoke such a strong response from the Taiwanese people?
杨鲁门一开始加入 WTO 的时候，他就有用白米炸弹。那我们觉得它是一个反省，就是台湾要做国际贸易，它不能够把农业当作是一个断点。
在 WTO 的这个要求贸易自由化的理念之下，生产成本高的应该要放弃生产，但是放弃我们自己生产粮食的能力，等于是把我们的肚子掌握在别人的手上。
食物主权，坦白讲，它分成几个层次，一个是吃得饱，最起码遇到任何的战争征战，你不会粮食的基础被破坏。
但是我们台湾的自给率一向都偏低，我们土地极为有限，水资源也有限，所以我们没有办法生产足够的粮食给所有的消费者需要。
主粮的粮食自给率大概是在24到25%。联合国的农粮组织曾经要求第三世界国家主要粮食自给率要到40%。所以我们是有危机的。
以台湾在国际的处境，我们对粮食安全更加的重视。
Located at an intersection of the world's most heated flashpoints, why does Taiwan's larder seem so woefully understocked for the kind of storms brewing just beyond the horizon? How much of this food crisis is the legacy of an authoritarian past? What role have government subsidies played? And does all this talk of food crisis mask a hidden and more serious fracture in Taiwan's defenses? Welcome to TaiwanPlus, Finding Formosa. Eggs in too many baskets.
以前台湾的人吃的是再来米。那为什么到国民政府的时候，我们会开始去吃小麦？一个就是便利，买个点心，买个面包，对你来讲又是简单又方便。第二个就是用来自宣传。以前你有没有听过，其实吃面包会长得跟美国人一样白？
This kind of false advertising was order of the day in the 1950s and 60s as Reconstructionist America set about building export markets for its enormous food surplus. To make sure the wheat habit stuck, Washington helped establish the Taiwan Wheat Promotion Committee in 1962, which promptly went around selling school kids on sticky buns and skim milk powder.
对婴儿营养的增进、国民健康的维护都有很大的贡献。
Advertisers made wild claims. Pregnant women suffering with morning sickness could eat a few pieces of toasted bread and feel right as rain. Bread rolls would stop an infant from crying. Female readers were ensured that eating more wheat would make their complexion rosy and their skin fair. So many bags of US wheat arrived in Taiwan, in fact, that clothes made from wheat sack became a common sight across Taiwan, where just 1.5% of families reported eating a mixed rice-wheat diet in 1956. By 1982, it was more than half. And all these years later, this great dietary shift is a problem because wheat is no more a tropical plant now than it was 100 or 1,000 years ago.
其实我们的米的自给率是超过100%，可是我们的小麦自给率是0.5%，所以90%是靠进口，黄豆也是98%、95%靠进口。如果我们一开始加入 WTO， 跟欧盟一样，跟日本一样，就去灌输大家当令当季，你吃的东西你不能只是吃好吃啊，你要知道是哪里生产的啊，什么季节生产的啊，这些意识让大家有的话，我相信食物的文化才会被顾及。
And the need to reduce reliance on wheat and other non-native crops is seen as increasingly urgent in an era of disrupted supply chains and climate breakdown.
疫情让我们有更加的一个体会，继续的去依赖从国外进口，会让我们的粮食安全陷入在更加不能确保的一个处境，而且大家都很关心气候变迁的议题。我们在最近，政府也宣布，在乌山头水库也要停灌的休耕。南部过去的3年都不断的被迫因为缺水要停灌，要减少稻米的生产，那当然就会威胁到我们的粮食的自给以及我们的粮食的安全。
地区冲突的国家越来越多的时候，粮食处于一个被大家所竞夺的一个状况。2007年、2008年金融海啸的时候，来自越南米和泰国米每公吨超过1000块美金的时候，你发现那个就很恐怖了呢。
A brutal drought in Australia was also sending the cost of corn spiraling. Shortages of corn and other grains struck Taiwan, but the issue wasn't that Taiwan could not afford the imports. Grains could not be bought, rather, because of a bug or feature of the global food markets.
今天粮商会把粮食卖给最需要的人，买最多的还是出价最高的人？大家都以为他是出价最高的人，其实不对。它是卖给量最高的一个人。
台湾如果以世界范围来讲，我们的采购量并不多呢。
With the global economy as tightly enmeshed as it is, the butterfly effect of unharvested wheat in Donbass can ripple out to famine in the Horn of Africa, starving chickens in France, and surging bread prices in Japan. With more mouths to feed around the world, import-reliant countries are left at the mercy of the market. With Taiwan now so reliant on imported wheat, this leaves the nation's stomachs in the hands of others.
以前的蒋经国啊、李国鼎、孙运璇、尹仲荣跟赵耀东的时候，提出要用农业去发展工业这件事情，让工业变好之后，回头辅导农业。前面这半段有成功，后面这半段就没成功啦。
Practically, this has resulted in a fragmented agricultural landscape dominated by a patchwork of small-scale farms, largely dependent on family labor. By nature, then, Taiwanese farmers cannot chase efficiency to the extent of their industrialized rivals overseas. As a result, a culture of heavy agricultural subsidies has grown up in the years since Taiwan democratized.
政府对不起的是50岁以上的农民，因为那些有被政府剥削过。但是50岁以下的农民，你都是享受到好处啊。政府农机也给你补助，一台农机300万，政府给你补贴100万。你买一台车300万，你爸爸会不会帮你出100万的钱？那可能不会啊，但政府会还不用还呢。这几年的政府对农业的支持是越来越大的时候，那你会发现到说，农民是不是也要自己站起来？
这些补贴可能往往会有一些副作用，就是会打乱这个市场它的机制，尤其是价格调节的机制。
Yet subsidies are multifaceted, ranging from payments for tractors to compensation for farmers who fallow or rest their fields.
我们从1974年开始实施了稻米保价收购。如果说没有这个稻米保价收购，我们今天也不可能出现了稻米生产过剩的情况。而且休耕补贴它其实是休耕，它并不是废耕。所以在2013年，我们政府也开始去实施活化的一个政策。我们也不希望它又回到过去要生产水稻，反而是我们要配合大粮仓的这个计划来推动。
Launched by the Council of Agriculture in 2016, the Great Granary Project aims to diversify grain production and increase storage across Taiwan, and its considerable scale demonstrates just how seriously Taipei is taking the issue. The same level of concern, however, seems absent from a parallel, yet potentially even more severe breach in Taiwanese security. The real threat, according to some, lies in between the farms and in the skies above the fields.
Taiwan imports 97% of its energy. In the event of a quarantine, blockade, or an invasion, Taiwan would have pretty severe concerns about energy security. So Taiwan's situation is not unique, but it is uniquely bad.
97% is a scary number, and while Taiwan does have some energy reserves, stockpiles are only just above internationally mandated minimums.
This is 39 days for coal, 11 days of natural gas, 140 days for oil. Any type of cutoff from Taiwan is a scenario that would be very detrimental to energy-heavy economy of the country.
And yet, recent steps in energy policy have not been towards security, but away from it.
存放在兰屿的低放射性核废料被质疑储存桶破裂，有辐射外泄的可能。
他们都没有关心我们当地人的生命。
绿能大国，风光启动，风光启动。为了一个安心的家园和没有恐惧的未来，我们要和所有的国人站在一起。2025非核家园，现在就要迈开步伐。
Taiwan has a very painful legacy of nuclear waste dumping, especially on Orchid Island, and this is a situation that can never be repeated. However, the plan of the current administration to shut down nuclear power plants by 2025 is adding to the risk.
There are legitimate arguments for and against nuclear power in Taiwan, but if I was advising the government, I would certainly support continuing nuclear energy generation because it does provide greater energy security for the island.
Not only does the plan to abolish nuclear power directly impact energy security, it also slows down an already glacial green transition. Renewable energy sources are a vital way to bolster Taiwan's energy security. Solar and wind farms, however, are just as hungry for land as their agricultural cousins.
There's a trade-off between using land for either agriculture or energy generation. But in general, almost every expert would say Taiwan would be much better served by using that scarce land for its energy security needs, whether that's through onshore solar, onshore wind, or most likely both.
So while food security might feel alarming when rice prices rise and you can't find any eggs, the issue that really concerns experts when it comes to any cross-strait crisis is energy.
其实我比较不担心中国用粮食防治，因为台湾真的是一个幸福的宝岛，你可能都不知道。我们把最好的番茄送到台北，送到麦当劳，可是我们还有好多番茄，它一样是很漂亮啊，一样是很新鲜啊，只是它长得比较大、比较小啊。但遇到危机，这些可以去采收啊。
我们对于台湾的农业其实是有信心的，不管是水稻，甚至于杂粮、其他的蔬菜、水果、肉，都能够尽量的由我们来生产来提供。
能源安全跟粮食安全其实好像是被绑在一起，但是问题是在于能源安全我们能不能保障？我们是需要把能源、粮食跟水啊整体来看，达到一个平衡的发展。
Holistic development. More grains, more solar, more wind, less coal, less gas, less imports. It's a story that will now be familiar to many. Taiwan's situation is not unique, it's just uniquely bad. While the market might be a bigger threat to Taiwan's food security than any army, energy dependence could leave Taiwan brittle in any cross-strait crisis, and perhaps easier to crack.